Hi, today we'll be discussing about the Spring Framework. We already discussed about the Spring Boot Framework in another video, last video, but now I want to show you how many features, modules are there with the Spring Boot, right? I want to show them to you. You can see here. So, why Spring? As I told you, it is a framework where we can simplify the development of the Java-based application using a Spring. So, what Spring can do, you can observe here a lot of things. We can integrate the AI also, artificial intelligence, with the Spring application. They provided dependencies for Spring framework, and we can also develop microservices. We all know that microservices is a concept where we build individual service as per the domain model, as per the business domain model. For example, you take a banking application for credit deposit, or for withdrawal, or for viewing the summary of the accounts. For each and every functionality, we will create a separate service. So microservice is nothing but a individual service which process the separate functionality. I mean, that particular service only serve a particular functionality, like it can only show the account details, right? Or another service, it can only use it for deposit of the money. Another service, it can only use it for withdrawal. So that way, for each domain, for each functionality, we will create a separate service. That way, the microservices applications would be very useful, because the services would be independent with each other. We can use those services anywhere we want, in any third-party applications also. We can simply call that service, right? So what we are doing here, we are just segregating the functionality by building a different service. That's why we call it as a microservice. It performs a single functionality, single responsibility. And we can actually establish the communication between multiple services, and we can also reuse the services. Reusability is the good thing. So once I develop any service with respect to particular specific functionality or a domain model, let's say you take withdrawal, for withdrawal of amount from the banking application. So withdrawal means once we withdraw money, and inside the business logic, we have to deduct the money that was withdrawn from the actual amount. So this functionality cannot be changed anywhere. So tomorrow, if any other client wants to build same kind of banking application, they don't need to build withdrawal related functionality. They can simply reuse which was already developed by other people, or which was already developed, right? So that way, reusability would be the great benefit for the microservices. So the Spring, using a Spring, we can develop microservices, quickly deliver the production grade features with independently, right? For the microservices. And there is a reactive programming is also introduced with respect to Spring. That means asynchronously, I mean non-blocking architecture. We can develop applications which can be asynchronous and non-blocking kind of architecture. We all know what is asynchronous and non-blocking means. It is a kind of whenever there are two process are getting executed, a second process need not to be wait for the first process to be completed, right? They will be asynchronous. Using a Spring, we can achieve it. So we can also integrate the cloud. We can directly connect the multiple cloud providers to our Spring Boot application, because Spring is providing lot of adapters and dependencies for each and every cloud. We can use. We can develop a web application. We can also develop serverless applications, flexibility. Okay, serverless means we will simply write the code, right? We will write the code and we deploy that we will write the code uh, using a Spring, like you take AWS or GCP or Azure Cloud. There is a serverless concept. We simply write the code and deployment and install deployment of the service will be taken care by the cloud infrastructure internally in background. We don't need to bother about it. So using a Spring also we can develop serverless application code. Event driven architecture, we know that, right? Spring is very good framework for dealing with event driven architecture. We can actually send messages and receive messages. We can develop producer consumers using Spring framework. And batch processing, for a long time many people have been using a Spring framework for batch processing, right? They are actually developing automated tasks and offline processing. The batch jobs can be developed using a Spring batch framework approach. So I want to show you modules regarding Spring. So you see here why Spring we already discussed. We can use along with the generative AI microservices we can develop, and reactive programming, as I told you, synchronous and non-blocking kind of application architecture we can build using a Spring. Event driven approach, cloud, web applications, serverless and batch. And how we can see, you can see the different projects that were built using a Spring framework, right? The first thing is a Spring Boot. We already discussed what is Spring Boot. Spring Boot is advanced for Spring framework. It provides a lot of annotations and for us to build an application. It simplifies the development work. Developers can quickly build an application using just annotation. They don't need to bother about dependency injection and inversion of control management, right? These are all there. Next thing is Spring framework. We know the Spring framework is the base framework for us, core framework. Spring Cloud, we discussed Spring Cloud. If you want to use multiple cloud third-party providers along the Spring application, Spring Cloud will provide an option for you. Spring Cloud data flow. So you see, for some of the applications, generally, why do we need data flow? Microservices based streaming and batch data processing for Cloud Foundry Kubernetes. Spring Cloud Data Flow provides tools to create complex topologies for streaming and batch data pipelines. The data pipeline consists of Spring Boot apps built using Spring Cloud Stream and Spring Cloud Task. So using this dependency or this module, we can actually build a data pipeline, batch data pipeline. We can also create a streaming pipeline, right? We can manage them using a Spring Cloud Stream. So this is the feature of the Spring Cloud Spring Data Cloud, Spring Cloud Data Flow. Next thing is the Spring Data. Spring Data, what do you mean by Spring Data? We know that we require a Hibernate, right? For creating models and entity classes. I mean, ORM platform. Spring Data is nothing but a Spring Data JPA, where we can create Java persistent APIs, right? We can utilize this Hibernate, underlining Hibernate or MyBat structure using Spring Data JPA, because it provides a lot of connectors for any kind of database, whether it is a SQL database or NoSQL databases. We can use Spring Data JPA. Okay, Spring integration. There is a, let's see what is the Spring integration here. Spring integration's primary goal is to provide simple model for building enterprise integration solution while maintaining the separation of concerns that is essential for producing maintainable testers. So here we are able to create a plain POJOs, right? We can create entities and we can integrate the data to the models. So that way the Spring integration approach will provide us the benefit, right? You see, Spring integration takes this concept one step further, where POJOs are wired together using messaging paradigm where individual components may not be aware of other components in each application. So you take some examples here. You can see we can integrate, we can create a channel transformer. So implementation of most enterprise integration patterns: endpoint, channel, aggregator, filter, transfer, controller bus. So we can create all these features using a Spring integration. We can integrate it. We can integrate JMS, we can integrate RESTful web services, SOAP web service. We can also integrate REST. We can integrate FTP, SFTP, RabbitMQ, email approach. We can integrate all these things, right? So that is the use of Spring integration. Basically, Spring integration, we can integrate any other third-party service, messaging service, or a kind of email service, or it is a file service, whatever the service, we can integrate it. Spring Batch, as I told you, we can create a batch jobs using a Spring. Earlier we used to create the batch jobs using shell scripting or Python or any scripting languages. Mostly we use the interpreted language for creating it. But now Java providing Java with the Spring is very good option if you want to create a batch jobs, online jobs, offline jobs, or if you want to create it, you can create it. Spring security, we all know Spring is providing very good security. It provides basic security. We can also integrate OAuth framework here using a Spring security. We can also integrate LDAP security. So Spring provides very good features for security and all. Okay, so these are the major things that the Spring is providing for us. So we have a lot of community for the Spring framework. If developer wants to see that, and we can go and we can see it there. Okay, for you can go through that, and the learning process they explained it, how you can go and how you can see. So first you can understand what is the core basic concept of the Spring framework, how do we use it, and next you can jump onto the Spring Boot, and also you can utilize all the Spring security, batch, AI, Spring integration, Spring data, how you can see all these modules separately when you are trying to learn that. So that way you'll be able to learn the Spring Boot or Spring framework perfectly. Thank you very much.